it goes all the way back there, 2013. We're talking to a guest named Eric Christian about the just tragic, ridiculous project going on in California with high-speed rail.
It is the most expensive project in human history. No hyperbole aside, I don't even think the Great Pyramid of Giza cost this. Now, granted, they used a lot of slave labor back then, but if you had OSHA and you had a prevailing union wage on it, I still don't think it would be as expensive as the $68 gazillion choo-choo to nowhere here in California. So yeah, it is the largest project in human history.
When it was first passed, it was supposed to cost how much?
$33 billion. It is shot up to $100 billion, and they realized that was not working too well with the public. So they got together, erased a few zeros, and put it down to $68 billion. But of course, we know it will come in somewhere north of probably $200 billion when this is all done. But you know, it's just a few billion here, a few billion there. It's not real money.
The only controversial thing he says there is when it's all done, because I don't know that there's a moment it ever gets done. We updated the story many, many times over the years. In fact, on this program back in 2022, we talked to you about the newest cost estimates, and Eric seemed to be kind of right on the money as to what was going to happen here. Meanwhile, costs have continued to escalate. When the California High-Speed Rail Authority issued its new 2022 draft business plan in February, it estimated an ultimate cost as high as $105 billion. Less than 3 months later, the, quote, final plan, end quote, raised the estimate to $113 billion. So we're getting closer and closer to the $200 billion number. And with more than, we're about 4 times as much as it was supposed to cost from its original proposal. Now, there's a new piece out. This one is in the New York Times, and it goes through what actually went on along this route as they're trying to build this. And I just love the story because it's just the exact story you should know about government failure and how these things happen. Let me draw this one up for you. A scenic tour of red tape tracking the slowest high-speed trade in the country. Again, to their credit, the New York Times is actually covering this. I don't know that anyone's picked up on it outside of us, but we're going to make sure it gets some attention that it deserves. Farmer John Deepersluit's crops are about 1,000 acres of stone fruits, peaches, apricots, and so on, including the patented varieties shipped daily during harvest season to Japan, Singapore, China, and elsewhere. The high-speed rail bed, a smooth, wide berm, trackless for now, cuts diagonally across those orchards. It carved up all the farmland, Mr. Deepersluit said, and it left a lot of remnant pieces that are useless. This is government policy in action. This is how it works every single time. A little bit more. This is a very strange choice they made at the beginning. Another issue still debated too late is why high-speed rail began construction in the middle of the route and not at the endpoints. Officials wanted to bring jobs to a chronically overlooked region and wanted to show progress quickly, hoping momentum would lead to more funding and support. And that's a key part here. They knew all the time they needed more than $33 billion. They knew it. They just hoped people would just continue to give them money, which, by the way, has happened. They have been getting more and more money, just not apparently enough. The rail route cut some dairies and farms in half. It split houses from their own barns, bisected processing facilities. It turned some 100-year-old roads into dead ends. It stranded homeowners on inaccessible islands and forced farmers and their equipment to go miles out of the way simply to work their own land. Some schmucks 15 years ago said, "This is the route we're going to take," said Ruth Howarth, one of the clients that this particular person in the interview was on his way to see, and they had no idea of the impact. Of course, the truth is they don't care about the impact, really. I mean, whatever, it's roll over your property, they roll over your property. They were taking it through eminent domain in the first place, against the will of many of these landowners. High-speed rail does not plan many stations, of course, with fewer stops and faster trains, but one is being built a couple of miles east of town atop a long viaduct about 60 feet high. Picture these communities. There's just farmlands, 60 feet high, and as long as an airport runway. In such a rural setting, the pilings look out of scale and otherworldly. Mr. Wasser pointed out that where there's a small subdivision that had been moved out of the way, where a farmer lost 25 acres of cherry trees to a construction yard, where a cheese company was bumped off land it had bought 6 months earlier to expand its operation. And we talk about how businesses are affected by government policy. We've been doing it a lot lately with tariffs and other things. This is what happens, right? Like you buy land to build a processing facility. You're in the process of building that, and all of a sudden you get kicked off of it because some guy wants to build a train that some guy you've never even met, to process people that you'll never meet, blazing through your town 60 feet in the air at 200 miles an hour. That, of course, will probably never actually happen. A road dead-ended at a future rail line, a swath of compacted dirt as wide as a highway in front of one of the region's biggest dairies, a 24-hour-a-day operation. A dozen construction workers in orange vests were preparing to bore a tunnel under the rail line. It will be big enough for semi-trucks and solely for one business, the dairy's use. That is part of a settlement being negotiated. The rail authority obtained its order of possession in 2019. Attorney Jan Khan knows firsthand how high-speed rail's arrival can alter quiet lives in unassuming places. More than a decade ago, he attended a community meeting where high-speed rail officials unveiled maps of the proposed routes. Mr. Khan's family lived in a century-old farmhouse outside of Hanford. Tell me if you think this would be a problem for you. He learned that the train line, would cut through his front porch. A rail official explained that the line in that area would be dug below grade. An old farmer overheard, "I hope you can swim," because you can't really do that in certain areas. But of course, these people don't know this. This is a centrally planned project, and centrally planned projects go this way all the time. Of 3 district lagoons or retention ponds, the rail path now cuts 2 of them in half. Another is considered part of a wetland, which caused the rail authority to build another sky-high viaduct over what looks like nothing, because it was technically one of these wetlands, but there was not really any water there, so they have a giant bridge over something that there's no water in. Rail construction has forced the lagoons to remain dry the past 2 years. That coincided with wet years, meaning no stored water in lots pumping for area farmers. Now, of course, there's a lot of excuses going around. Right? It's always somebody else's fault, certainly not government politicians' fault. Least of all, we know it can't possibly be Gavin Newsom's fault. Now, this happened before he was even in office. Of course, it was passed, but it has not improved. He's not been able to successfully do anything here. So this is what his excuse was. Gavin Newsom was, I guess, on Real Time with Bill Maher. The host blamed lawyers, lobbyists, contractors, environmentalists, unions, and others. Notice, not him, not another politician, but just others. The biggest delay on high-speed rail, Mr. Newsom replied, has been taking 2,270 properties under eminent domain. Maybe that's a signal that you shouldn't do that. And ultimately getting the environmental work cleared. Again, he is noting that the environmental work was a big problem here, and it was. It was a bold and pointed casting of blame for a project that is a running joke, a not running joke, and a punchline for government inefficiency and bureaucratic entanglement. Of course, he left out this little detail, which is in the story. The rail authority later declined to cite any examples in which right-of-way acquisition, a process that includes an eminent domain, caused delay to construction activities. They couldn't come up with one example. Remember, he said 2,270 properties we're trying to take. They can't come up with one example where it actually slowed construction. But it noted many secondary reasons the project is so far behind schedule. So basically the way that process works is they say, hey, we're going to you, we're taking your property, eminent domain. Then they give you an offer for your property, which is really crappy. And then the house owner says, we're not taking that. They go to court. But as they go to court, the way the law works is the government gets to keep building. So there was no delays at all for this. This is just a blatant lie. The bottom line is, this is my favorite story of all time, and I'm going to keep talking about it and bothering with you every single time there's a new update because I love it.